graveyard. The pile into which you discard, where instants and sorcery spells go once they have resolved, and where permanents go when they have been sacrificed, destroyed, or put into the graveyard due to state-based effects. Throughout the history of Magic the Gathering, this zone has been a very powerful focus in many strategies. From Dredge to Reanimation to Recursion, Black Mages have utilized their graveyard to make the most of their undead pets. Commander has been no exception. There are many options in choosing a commander who utilizes the graveyard. From Sidisi Brood Tyrant to Carador the Ghost Chieftain, Sheoldred Whispering One, the Mimeoplasm, Chainer Dementia Master, and even Cedrus the Traitor King. But there is one commander who reigns supreme when it comes to reanimation, and that is Balthor the Defiled. Balthor the Defiled is a zombie dwarf legend who costs 2 and 2 black. All minions get +1/+1, but that is something that we're not going to worry about in this deck. What we really like is his second ability. Triple black, remove Balthor the Defiled from the game, and each player returns all black and red creature cards from his or her graveyard to play. In Commander, removing Balthor just means you're going to be able to use him again for 2 mana more, as he will immediately re-enter the command zone. This means that throughout the progression of the Commander game, we will have a way to reanimate our graveyard. He is also a commander we don't have to worry about protecting, as we are going to be consistently sacrificing him to bring back cards from the graveyard. This means that we can free up slots that are traditionally in Commander used for cards like Lightning Greaves, or other cards that give hexproof or indestructible to your commander. The focal point of our commander is going to be our graveyard, so we want to fill up our graveyard as quickly as possible. This brings us to our first category, which is filling up our graveyard. We do this through various cards. The all-star of the deck is Buried Alive. Buried Alive allows us to tutor up 3 creature cards and put them into our graveyard. Corpse Connoisseur is a mini Buried Alive effect, as when Corpse Connoisseur enters the battlefield, we get to tutor up 1 creature card and put in the graveyard, and he also has the lovely ability of being able to unearth and find us a second one. Extractor Demon, another card that has unearth for 3, has the ability that whenever a creature leaves the battlefield, you may have target player put the top 2 cards of his or her library into their graveyard. We will be using the Extractor Demon to mill our own library into our graveyard. Cards like Street Wraith and Twisted Abomination and Undead Gladiator allow us to cycle through these cards to find swamps or other relevant cards. Especially Undead Gladiator has the ability to discard other big cards in our hand that we normally would not be able to cast and put them directly into our graveyard, and then allows us to then again cycle Undead Gladiator to try to find us more resources to get us to cast our commander or reanimate through other methods. We also are running Necromancer Stockpile, which for 2 mana allows us to discard a creature card and draw a card. Dark Deal is another powerhouse. Each player discards all the cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards -1. Pack Rat can get out of control in Commander. For just 3 mana, you can discard a card and put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of Pack Rat. So you can have early threats with Pack Rats, and when the Pack Rats are finally taken care of, you can reanimate everything that you had previously sacrificed to the Rat Pack. Lastly is Restless Dreams. As an additional cost to play Restless Dreams, you discard X cards from your hand, and you may return X creature cards from your graveyard or hand. This is good to bring back those early creature cards that you want to cast for value, and put the big creatures that you want to reanimate back in the graveyard. Another strategy in filling up our graveyard comes from the very powerful Dredge mechanic. We are using basically every Dredge card that is available to us in black. This means that we're running Dakmor Salvage, Stinkweed Imp, Golgari Thug, Necroplasm, and Darkblast. This is one of the key things you hurry and tutor up with Buried Alive or Corpse Connoisseur, is usually into a Stinkweed Imp or a Golgari Thug. Again, the key is to get as many things in the graveyard for Balthor to reanimate. The next category is Ramp. With Balthor the Defiled, I highly recommend that you wait to cast Balthor the Defiled until you have 7 mana. That way you can cast him for his original 4 cost and then immediately activate him for 3 mana. This is also about the time that you will have enough cards in the graveyard to really get the value out of Balthor. So we're going to run a few cards, mainly a lot of artifacts here, to try to get up to 7 mana. The first being the obvious choice, which is Sol Ring, which is a 1 mana artifact that taps for 2. We have Thrawn Dynamo and Sisay's Ring, Hedron Archive, which has the added benefit of being able to sacrifice when you're low on ammunition and need to find more relevant cards. There are also a lot of lands that help us get to the pivotal 7 mana point. Temple of the False Gods, when you have 5 or more lands, allows you to tap for 2 mana. Expedition Map, which can help find you one of the following cards that can actually cheat in more than the allotted 1 mana. First off is the Cabal Coffers and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth combination. Expedition Map and some sort of tutors allow this combination to consistently come out in Commander decks. This will turn all of your lands into swamps, including the Cabal Coffers, and then allow you to add black mana to your mana pool for each swamp you control. The next is Crypt of Agadeem. You can 2 and tap, add black to your mana pool for each black creature card in your graveyard. Peat Bog is also a card that I think is worth putting in this because it hits that pivotal 7 mana on usually the turn you want it to happen. Peat Bog enters the battlefield tapped with 2 depletion counters on it, and then you're able to remove a depletion counter to add 2 black to your mana pool. When there are no more depletion counters, you have to sacrifice it. But since we are kind of an all-in deck, getting that ability to ramp up that additional mana is very, very key to the strategy. What black deck would be complete without Dark Ritual? Songs of the Damned is another great option in this deck, as you're going to have a lot of creatures in the graveyard. Another card is Burnt Offering. Burnt Offering allows you to sacrifice a creature and add that creature's casting cost in any combination of red or black mana to your mana pool. There are 2 creatures that also allow you to ramp. The first is Crypt Ghast, which whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add additional black mana to your mana pool. And Magus of the Coffers, which says 2 and tap, add black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. Heartless Summoning is also a crucial addition to the deck. It works very well with Balthor as it reduces the converted mana cost of creatures you control by 2 generic mana. So what creatures are we looking to reanimate? The first obvious choice is the all-star in this deck, which is Sheoldred the Whispering One. Often this is the first card you try to bury it alive for or Corpse Connoisseur for to put in your graveyard. If you can guarantee that you reanimate Sheoldred the Whispering One, Sheoldred can then reanimate subsequent creature cards throughout the progression of the game. Sheoldred also has the added benefit of locking down your opponent. At the beginning of each of your opponent's upkeep, they have to sacrifice a creature. Avatar of Woe is an obvious choice in this deck, as it actually costs 1 generic mana less for each creature card in your graveyard, and then can destroy creatures. Karu Pitlord is a big body, which you can pay a life to give a creature -1/-1. Butcher of Malakir says whenever one of your creatures dies, then they have to sacrifice an opponent, so it gets around hexproof and indestructible. Overseer of the Damned, when it enters the battlefield, you destroy a creature, and whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls, put a 2/2 black zombie into play. Shadowborn Demon destroys a non-demon creature. Massacre Wurm gives all your opponent's creatures -2/-2. Pestilence Demon can be used as a mana dump to do 1 damage to each creature each player. Helldozer can take care of those pesky non-basic lands, and if it does destroy a non-basic land, you may untap Helldozer. Often lock down 3-color decks with Helldozer or just greedy mana bases. Visara the Dreadful is another card that can destroy creatures. Ascendant Evincar pumps up all of your black creatures and it gives non-black creatures -1/-1. Reaper of the Abyss states that if a creature died this turn through the Morbid, you can destroy another non-demon creature. Kalitas Bloodchief of Get with 3 mana can destroy a creature and give you a vampire creature token onto the battlefield that's power and toughness is equal to that creature's. And Fell Shepherd deals combat damage to player to your hand all creature cards that were put in your graveyard from the battlefield this turn. And then you can also use this as a sack outlet, sacrifice another creature, and target creature gets -2/-2. Added control against pesky creature-based decks. Next up, we have the value cards. The first of these is Sepulchre Primordial. This card is just a powerhouse if you're going against other creature-based decks. It also helps you take care of a pesky card that Balthor would get an opponent back from their graveyard to their battlefield. Harvester's Souls, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. The Baleful Force, which is a very, very popular target for me to tutor up because at the beginning of each upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Rune-Scarred Demon, which is also another favorite, and Sidisi Undead Vizier. By exploiting a creature, you may search your library for any card and put it into your hand. Soul of Innistrad allows you to return 3 creature cards from your graveyard or hand, and you can actually exile it from your graveyard to have this ability. Patron of the Nezumi, whenever a permanent is put into an opponent's graveyard, that player loses 1 life. And Scion of Darkness can also use your opponent's creatures against them. Whenever it deals combat damage to player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard into play under your control. Ob Nixilis Unshackled is a powerhouse in Commander. This really punishes your opponent from trying to tutor up answers, as they have to pay 10 life and sacrifice a creature every time they search their library. Also, whenever another creature dies, you can put a +1/+1 counter off Nixilis. It pairs very well with a lot of the sweepers that you're running in your Reanimation package. Lastly, it's going to be our finishers, which is Kokosho the Evening Star and Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Sometimes we won't be able to just attack in with our large bodies. We have to have a way just to finish the game. I find that being able to recur Kokoshu and Grey Merchant over and over through cards that can then sacrifice them and then reanimate them can just finish off the game. Even though Balthor the Defiled is our primary reanimation spell, I think that it's smart to run alternate reanimations, especially to do something early, to reanimate some of your early creatures that you tutor up through Buried Alive or other dredge means. You don't want to just be not doing anything for 7 turns to try to ramp up to Balthor the Defiled. So we have cards like Dread Return, which you can return target creature card from the graveyard to play, and then sacrifice 3 creatures to return another creature to play. Dread Return is a very, very smart card to have in this deck, as if it gets milled, it is a card you can still use from your graveyard. Doomed Necromancer is a very, very powerful card in this deck, as you can cast it early, sacrifice it, return a creature from your graveyard to play, and then it gets reanimated through Balthor, and you can get another card that might have been answered by a removal spell, and then get it back from your graveyard to play. Chainer Dementia Master is another commander you may use for this deck. It can be an alternate commander, and it also can bring back, at the cost of 3 life and 3 black, you can put target creature card from a graveyard to play under your control. Body Snatcher is another favorite of mine. When it enters the battlefield, you can choose and discard a creature card from your hand, and then when Body Snatcher dies, you can return a creature card from your graveyard to play. Cards like Victimize, Stitch Together, Animate Dead, Exhume, Living Death, Twilight's Call, Grimoire of the Dead, and Diabolic Servitude all offer alternative ways to reanimate cards from your graveyard. I especially like Grimoire of the Dead, as it targets every creature in all graveyards, and it's very easy. It also acts as a way to put cards into your graveyard by discarding a card. So if Grimoire of the Dead is out for 3 turns, on the 4th turn, you can remove the 3 study counters, sacrifice it, and then you get all of those creatures back from your graveyard and all your opponent's graveyards on the battlefield under your control. Diabolical Servitude is especially good in this deck, as it can keep recurring more cards. But you have to be careful not to Diabolical Servitude something that you need in the late game, as soon as it dies, it is exiled. Living Death is a great card. It will actually punish a lot of creature-based decks and then make them sack them, and then you can get all of your creatures back from the graveyard. And Exhume is a really, really powerful card early on. Same with Animate Dead, as they're just 2 mana to get back a creature. Exhume can allow all of your opponents, but usually on turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4, there aren't a lot of creatures in the graveyard. Exhume is very, very good after Buried Alive, when you've put a Sidisi in the graveyard and something like a Runescarred Demon. Lastly, I've included a few other cards to get around Pesky, Indestructible, and Hexproof. I think Fleshbag Marauder and Merciless Executioner are really good in this deck, as they allow you to play them early, make your opponent sacrifice their commander or a pesky card that might be giving you trouble, and then when you reanimate it, you can always bring back a Fleshbag Marauder and then sack itself again. I also like Shriekmaw. I think Shriekmaw is really good to evoke early on, and then you will be able to reanimate it and once again get rid of, especially like a red card that you accidentally reanimate from another opponent's graveyard. The Shriekmaw is pivotal for that. So basically the deck is very, very focused. You can go some other routes. You can run cards like Toxic Deluge or Drown in Sorrow or Infest or Black Sun Zenith, just early ways to control the board. I've had Innocent Blood and similar sacrifice type cards or board wipes like Damnation, but I found that having a removal through your reanimation strategies is the most consistent way, and in my opinion the most fun way to run Balthor the Defiled. After that, you just have to basically fill up the rest of your cards with basic swamps or cards like Bojuka Bog. You can run some cards like Withered Wretch that can exile cards from graveyards, because again, Balthor does affect your opponent's graveyard. So if there's another reanimation type strategy going around, maybe Balthor the Defiled will require some hate cards for opponent's graveyards. Hope you enjoyed this Commander deck. We'll try to be doing this on a consistent schedule every Saturday, right before our Commander tournament at 5 p.m. I'll try to show you the deck that I'll be playing. Thanks for watching.